Join me, Oscar Chiwira, as I host you alongside my colleagues.
Abiodun Oni from Nigeria.
Neo Tlhaselo from Botswana.
On Wednesdays from 12:00 hours to 13:00 hours Central Africa time, or 11:00 hours to 12:00 hours West Africa time. A conversation with the development partners. Conversation with Africa. Africa Rising. AfCFTA. Powered by the Business Crow and Absa Bank Botswana.
It is time for a Pan-African affair right here on Gaps FM, Gaborone, Botswana. We're broadcasting live from this beautiful country in the SADC region. Let me take this time to welcome all development partners who have tuned in from all over Africa. This is Conversation with Africa. We're quite excited to be stirring the African conversation at this hour. My name is Neo Tlhaselo. I'm sailing in with my co-host from Nigeria, Abiodun Oni. And let me just take this time to also extend an apology from our co-host from Zimbabwe, Oscar Chiwira, who will not make it today, but will join in other episodes. Let me do this quickly, and then my co-host, who's co-hosting from Nigeria, in Nigeria, will also welcome you from the other side. It is 12:13. That is our studio time right here on Central Africa, and this time check is proudly brought to you by Silverton Radiators.
Suzwe. Power to engage your world is on 94.0 FM.
Conversation with Africa, Africa Rising, AfCFTA. It is a Pan-African affair at this hour. We're broadcasting live. If you just joined us, welcome. Let me welcome again all development partners as I focus on SADC and on the East, where Oscar usually welcomes our development partners. Over to you, my co-host.
Good morning, beautiful people of West Africa. Neil, how are you doing?
I'm quite excited, Oni.
It's a very good day to all our listeners from different parts of the world.
Yeah.
My name, once again, is Abiodun Oni, and this is Conversation with Africa. Africa Rising, AfCFTA, and Gaps FM.
Right.
Don't touch the dial. It promised to be a very interesting show today. And, we're going to miss Dr. Oscar Chiwira. We can't afford to have that voice of the show.
His nickname apparently is The Voice.
Yeah, we're going to make sure it's our next time, guys.
Yeah, right. I'm quite excited about today's show, Oni. We are on our 10th episode of Conversation with Africa, and I must say that feedback has been quite great and overwhelming. I'm quite humbled by the feedback that we have been getting from our colleagues at Ghana. You'll take note that at Ghana, that is where the secretariat is of the AfCFTA, and you'll take note that at Addis Ababa, that is where our headquarters of AU is. I'm quite excited, and we're quite privileged as Conversation with Africa to be endorsed by the African Union AfCFTA unit in specifically, and we're of course a member as Conversation with Africa, a member of the AfCFTA policy network. It is quite humbling that we are listened to by the entire continent and our citizens in the diaspora. I know that we have quite a number at China who also tune in, Germany, all over the world. So it's quite humbling. Now, today's topic, Oni, we're unpacking the role of banks towards strengthening intra-Africa trade. The role of banks towards strengthening intra-Africa trade. Before I hand over to you, Oni, to say a few remarks on this, let me take this time to welcome our guests who can call in, or our listeners who can call in on 395. If you're local in Botswana, 3956962. That is your call in. And then when you're outside Botswana, anywhere you are listening from, you can add our code, which is 00267 395 0953956962, and the number on WhatsApp, which you can either send a text or a voice note, it's +267 3956962. We are unpacking the role of banks towards strengthening intra-Africa trade. Oni.
Yes, thank you, Neil, for that exciting, expressive introduction. I'm going to be talking about, on my side of the divide, I'm going to be talking about the strength of banks as determinant of a strong intra-Africa trade per country.
Right.
And I'm going to be discussing about the small-scale traders and talking about the opportunities that the bank actually has in taking up the inter-trade for the African sector, for the AfCFTA to be so successful. So,
yeah.
I mean, if time permits, I'm going to be talking extensively about the opportunity where I think there's a lot of place to play that our banks are actually missing out, and talk about the smaller guys that will always miss out when we're talking about intra-trade between the countries. I think it'll be exciting to go over that.
Right. You can just take one portion. Yeah, you can take a portion of it and then we exchange together on it. And let me just say that we're quite excited that at exactly 12:30, we will be joined by a special guest from Absa Bank Botswana, Tebogo Gidi, who's the head of transactional banking, and she is within the corporate and investment banking section. So we will have also an expert in the area at 12:30 from Absa Bank Botswana. Yes, Oni.
Okay, like I said earlier on when I was introducing my topic, I'm going to be talking about strength of banks as a determinant of strong intra-Africa export per country. What I'm trying to say there is, from what I've read and I've gathered on the research, it seems like the stronger countries with the stronger banks actually do more with intra-Africa trade.
Yeah.
You know, when banks are healthy, right, countries' economies are healthy as well, or vice versa. I mean, it's the case of chicken before the egg, or egg before the chicken. Then when we have a healthy nation with a strong balance sheet, it's actually a direct reflection of strong African trade.
Yeah.
By proxy, directly or indirectly.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at from statistics, the 10 strongest banks by ranking, according to some very reliable institutions, are resident in South Africa, Nigeria, and Egypt. Fortunately, our sponsor on the other side of the show, Absa Bank,
yes,
is one of the three topmost banks in South Africa.
Yeah.
With about $5.9 billion United States dollar per capita. Now, as far as intra-African trade countries, South Africa and Nigeria are first and second intra-Africa exporters by ranking.
Yeah.
So South Africa has to the tune of like $20 billion intra-Africa exports. That's about 32% share, and followed distantly, of course, by Nigeria, which is a very distant second by doing like $6 billion USD into African trade. It's an 8% share of the market.
Right,
so another pointer to the role of banks vis-a-vis into African trade is the COVID. And the COVID impact we had in 2020.
Maybe before we get into the COVID, Oni, I'll also like to share that, the Agenda 2063 seeks to increase intra-Africa trade. So the financial integration has been identified as a key element in strengthening financial sectors and enhancing regional integration. So we obviously know that trade is an engine for strengthening economic growth and development, You spoke to the imports and exports, which actually play a very critical role in every economy. From our base as Botswana, the government has been actually encouraging us to be an export-led economy, and that also contributes to, you know, strengthening the status of the intra-Africa trade. And you know, it is quite also very important to note that you know, when we speak to financial institutions such as banks, you know, banks and other financial institutions help companies engage in intra-Africa trade by also mitigating risks so that goods and services can flow well across the continent and the globe in a smooth and secure manner. And trade finance is especially crucial, actually, also for SMEs, which may lack the resources, you know, to import or export valuable goods on their own. And besides importing and exporting, also being able to, you know, feed into the local markets, which is actually also another very important component. So today's subject matter should be able to put us in a position as traders, as to be able to appreciate the banking role in having to, you know, strengthen our capacity as entrepreneurs in serving, you know, the intra-Africa trade, which currently, as per the African Development Bank group, that is where this information I got from with regards to the trade finance gap for Africa, which is still high, standing at about 94 million USD. So even the intra-Africa trade, which is currently standing at 15%, even though some may argue that the number is not quite accurate, it is a plus or minus, because there is a debate that is currently saying that, you know, we have not been good at as Africa in having to compile data at cross-border at our cross-border trading. So it may be 15% plus or minus, but the fact remains is that we are at a low as a continent. So we should be able, you know, to unpack the role of the bank in having to assist us as traders. Yes, Oni?
Yes, talk about data capturing. It's one of the opportunities I'm going to be discussing when we get to the opportunity sector of the role and of the strength of the banking in intra-Africa trading. So I go back to my to the impact of COVID. With intra-Africa trading last year, where we had quite a bit of an impact on every part of the world and every part of our economy due to the COVID. The COVID-19 19 impact on African banks was actually there was quite a lot, but the pandemic impact on African banks in 2020 was less impactful as initially expected. I know, given the important role the banks play in the broader economy in Africa, faster economic growth is predicted for the continent as a whole. So despite the impact of COVID, but because the banks were had a bit of a positive review,
of course,
despite the impact of the pandemic,
promise
that we're going to have a quicker recovery of the continental economy as we move forward.
It is quite interesting. It is quite interesting, Oni, on that very, very important highlight which you have just made, because historically, you know, trade finance has tended to be, you know, highly vulnerable in times of crisis. And you know, such also, you know, within the current pandemic. But indeed, trade finance, you know, it differs from other forms of credit, you know, such as investment or working capital, in ways that make it higher risk, you know, during periods of crisis, you know, because of the difficulty of securing and perhaps enforcing credible commitments across borders in time of turmoil, and not across borders, but also, you know, within the local trade, the local traders. You know, in addition, the costs of trade finance could be substantially higher than they were, you know, pre-crisis, you know, raising the also a challenge of affordability, for traders and exporters. And I'm quite interested to hear what Absa Bank has for us with regards to this specifically at 12:13. We're quite excited to be having Tebogo Gidi, who's actually the head of transactional banking within the corporate and investment banking. Let me just say to the listeners that this is your time to call in and exchange with us. I would like to hear from you as a trader, as a business person, as to what it is that you feel the banks should be supporting you in with regards to having to ensure that our trading becomes affordable and very simpler, And so I would like you to call in that regard where you have to participate, and the challenges that you are incurring as a trader, which can be of beneficial information for the banks, for them to be able to craft those products that will be able to, make our trading and our exporting within Africa very easy. So if you may call in that regard and share what you think. 3956962 if you're local, plus 267-395-6962. Only in 2 minutes, what would you like to add in? We'll be going for a short break after your commentary in 2 minutes, and then we will be engaging our guest in just after the commercial break.
Yeah, I was saying that it's so interesting how I have always thought that we have dealt with the most important elements of the AfCFTA influencer. Like movements of the people. We had that on one of the role of government, leadership and governance, strategy and policy, etc. But I'm finding out that banks actually is yet another very, very big important factor in actualizing the dreams of AfCFTA. Honestly, I don't think this AfCFTA will be able to move forward at all without the input or the buying of the banks. Of the banks,
yes. They play a very leading role in this regard. This is Abiodun Oni, my co-host from Nigeria, in Nigeria. I'm Neo Tlhaselo, leading conversations, Africa Rising, AfCFTA, right here on GAPS FM, the leading private station in Gaborone, Botswana. Thank you very much. Let's stay put. We keep on rolling until the top of the hour. After this, we are joined by Tebogo Gidi from Absa Bank, Botswana.
At Absa, we believe in helping you find a way to get things done. We call this Africanacity. Conversation with Africa is proudly powered by Absa.
Absa calls this unique tenacity Africanacity. It's the way we get things done. We are on Zone 2. That is our segment 2 of Conversation with Africa. If you just joined in, welcome all development partners who are here and in SADC, West Africa, East Africa, North Africa, Central Africa. It is quite a pleasure to always be hosting you in this show. It is quite exciting. The segment that we're in, take note, that it is powered by Absa Bank, Botswana. We're quite excited. We have been mentioning throughout the show that we will be joined by Tebogo Gidi, who's the head of transactional banking within the corporate and investment banking, Botswana. Oni, would you like to also welcome our guest for us from the Africanacity? I like how you pronounce Africanacity. How do you do it?
Africanacity.
Right. Please welcome our guest.
I want to thank you especially for Absa for sponsoring this part of the show and the program as well. They are keeping us live and alive.
Right.
And they're giving us this oxygen.
Right.
Talking about AfCFTA. This is Conversation with Africa Rising, AfCFTA.
Right.
Welcome on board, madam.
Thank you so much, Oni and Neo, and good afternoon to the GAPS FM listeners.
You're welcome. The role of the banking sector in strengthening intra-Africa trade. This is what we're unpacking. And in this very last segment, we get to hear it from ABSA's perspective, specifically ABSA Bank Botswana perspective. Do be a part of this discussion. Actually, Oni, there's an SMS that just came in through from the development partner who's listening currently. Let me just read it. If I may just get a second on this. It has just come through into our WhatsApp line. Hi, Neo and Abiodun. My worry is how Africa trade will do for our indigenous banks. And then it continues to say, what role can it play to capacitate our indigenous African banks to grow, than promoting non-African or foreign banks in our midst from, Okay, this is from Innocent. Thank you very much, Innocent, for partaking in this Pan-African conversation. Let me throw it in to Tebogo immediately to maybe if you can just share your view on this, Tebogo, on what our development partner has just said about this. Emma.
Oh, thank you very much, Nell, for putting me on the spot. But I think ABSA is very proud to be partnering and sponsoring you on this show.
Thank you so much.
We are very keen on driving, as you know, we are Africanacity. We are very proud and very focused on driving the African story. And just to speak specifically on trade and on indigenous banks, I think when you are local, you have the best latitude to speak directly to the nuance of the actual traders and what the requirements from a local perspective are in comparison to the aspect of perhaps maybe Pan-African banks, where there's a lot to deal with in terms of decision making.
Yeah.
What you tend to see currently is the ability to act with speed when it comes to making decisions is what is becoming a game changer. Not so much on the best or most appropriate decision, but a timely decision when something needs to happen at that point, and the ability to keep on tweaking and changing as you go to be able to benefit and be relative to what is needed at that time. So I think from an indigenous banking perspective, it allows those indigenous banks to speak directly to the needs, if they can act with speed, and if they can equally then recognize what it takes to be able to open up the country to beyond just what needs to leave the, as an export, but also to be imported to benefit the quality of the exports that are eventually sold out of country.
Right.
I hope that answers the question.
Thank you so much. The voice that you've just heard is Tebogo Gidi, the head of transactional banking within the corporate and investment banking. And to continue being a part of this conversation, let me just do a rundown, Oni, of our contact details, +267 395 6962, your WhatsApp line. This one can be used by anyone wherever you are in Africa and the globe. The local SMS 14962, and then +267 395 6962 when you're outside Botswana. If you're local, you know what to do. And take note that we would like to hear from you as traders, from you as African citizens, as to what is it specifically that you feel banks should be doing to accelerate our participation as traders within strengthen the intra-Africa trade, and the challenges that you may be having, which can enable executives such as Tebogo Gidi and her team to be able to take home and go and craft products and services that can be able to make us as traders to have a seamless trading within our intra-Africa trade. Oni, your question to Tebogo.
So, Tebogo, thank you once again for being part of the show and for sponsoring. I'm taking you back to the SMS that was sent in. I have a typical example when I was doing my research. In Tanzania, there's a program called Southern Agricultural Growth Corridor of Tanzania. That's a program that encourages small-time farmers, right? But in Tanzania, like I said, and this is a very good role model, as I read, in making sure you have the small farmers integrated into the big pool where the products are exported. They are doing a very good job at that. But when it comes to the local banks, banks approve only collaterals for farmers with 20 acres and above, and it rules out small farmers that have only like 1 or 2 acres. And these are the guys that form the majority of the bottom of the triangle. And this cuts across the continent, probably the world. I mean, how do we get these small-time guys to be able to have a play in this business of infra-trade that we expect to be a big boost for the AfCFTA?
Yeah, maybe to add on to your question, Oni, I think we're asking Tebogo ABSA's support towards also accelerating SMEs participation so that she answers it in a broader perspective. Emma.
Thank you, Nell. So I'll answer that in 2 parts, Oni. I'll answer from what Africa needs to do, or what the banking sector in general needs to do, and what ABSA is doing.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of the farmer that you're referring to, the biggest challenge, and I think you mentioned it earlier on, is the ability to provide consistently accurate databases that allow anyone who wants to interact with any trader or even an investor who wants to participate in Africa, because this is where the growth is. I think what we underplay, or what we realize and not really focus on, is the wealth that Africa has. Investors want to be able to come into countries to be able to support us, but what our typical traders and customers tend to do is they immediately need credit from banks to start any business. Now, when we partner with investors, or when we allow an ecosystem that allows an investor to come into countries, we then still play a very pivotal role as banks. When we provide transactional banking, we provide a level of debt, but we equally then have an equity partner for that farmer. And that begins to change the context, because they come in with expertise and they come in with knowledge that they probably would understand the field for them to be able to invest in. The other aspect of what we tend to want to do from a banking perspective, to the point that you made, is we are comfortable to provide support where support is not necessarily required, where you've got a farmer who's got massive land and they've been able to purchase that land because there's activity that they have been doing. They probably have a strong track record that allows them to be provided that credit. And therefore, they have many means or many angles to go to for them to get support. Whereas where I'm starting and it's a green field, I probably have nowhere to go. And that is the farmer that needs assistance the most. So we can talk a lot about how disintegrated Africa is to the problems of Africa. We can speak a lot about where the clusters of assistance really need to come from and what that support is. I strongly believe that when it comes to farmers who are small scale, who are starting, the biggest problem is it starts with debt, and it doesn't necessarily see the light of day. Whereas what needs to happen is a lot of support in terms of coaching and engagement on the business, and also recognizing that while there is passion to be able to support this, you also need an experienced partner. And we've got a lot of investors in very different fields and areas which are happy to come in. The problem is the database from an Africa perspective, it is not always updated.
That is the biggest challenge. And I know that our partners at the African Union, they're quite supportive in listening to the show. And I believe that all the major stakeholders in this regard are also taking this to note. Oni, do you have a follow-up question before I engage Tebogo?
I wanted to just before comes in now, if you don't mind.
Yes, please.
What ABSA is doing.
Yes, the other angle. Yes, ABSA. What ABSA is doing. Yes.
Yes. So we've got a entrepreneurship and an ecosystem support platform which supports the supply chain. We call it ESD. It sits in business banking to support SMEs, and it supports the entire value chain from end to end, to an extent that there's minimal credit on the farmer, or if we are using the example of the farmer. And most importantly, we are able to support the company from end to end.
Right.
The second aspect is, how do we digitize trade to be able to recognize the fact that these are constantly moving goods, and not to necessarily speak to letters of credit only or to just guarantees. We are very well and conversant with dealing with those, but how we are able to provide systems and platforms that enable the movement of an invoice, for example, and an approval on that platform to support trading across Africa.
Yes.
Thanks.
Beautiful. Oni, do you have a follow-up question before I get to mine?
That just takes the steam out of my next question or comment.
Okay, we have a caller. We have a caller. Oni, we have a caller. Conversation with Africa, you're live.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I want to quickly raise a quick one. Kolobate, behind our graveyard, Temawan, there are some old ladies, Baba Iran detain on Kuta.
Yes.
They actually take the clay, they manufacture the bricks, they burn them. AfCFTA should go and look at people like that because those people are very, very, very important to our economy.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that needs to get a real hybrid startup when it comes to capital.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Rapula. Erra.
Yeah.
All right. We thank our guest for having called in. You can continue to be part of the show as you SMS 14962, or you can call in 395-6962 or plus 267-395-6962. Oni, maybe let us allow Tebogo to react to Rapula's statement, and then you take in from there. Tebogo?
Thank you, Neo. We're happy to look at it, and I guess from a GABS FM perspective, they will allow us to maybe just get clarity from Rapula on where these ladies are and what we can do. We are a typical African bank, have been in Botswana for a very, very long time. I think Africanacity is not just us trying to, position ourselves basically in Africa, but we actually recognize that we exist and we are here to serve the lives of Botswana.
Right.
So I think happy to actually just look at it, and not only for the caller and only for that, but I think to recognize that we are not just trying to cater for what banks typically cater for, but to be able to support beyond just what banking does. And some of the aspirations that we have shown from a digital perspective is just to demonstrate how relevant we want to be. I'm not going to speak much because I see that we've got a specific agenda for this, but AfCFTA has recently and is working through introducing a digital wallet.
Right.
It does not really need any account, but it is also and can be used for trading purposes.
Right. That is a very, very, very interesting product, which I'd like you to just summarize it later, if it may be, within 2 minutes, just for us to look forward to this one, because it sounds like a product that actually has been crafted for this specific purpose, being to allow the intra-Africa trade to really come to realization, especially with regards to traders who are actually the ones who effect the trading aspect and who will bring the reality of intra-Africa trade. Oni, you can do your follow-up question.
Yes, like I was saying, that's a good one by Tebogo. I like that when we have callers like this on shows like this. I mean, it's been taken up by the focal point principal, and they're going to make sure that what they're requesting for happens. It would be nice to follow up on that and make sure we come back to the show and let AfCFTA know that they really, really mean what they're selling with their product.
Yeah.
I hope you guys are not trying to make me come to Botswana.
Well, you have to come to Botswana, Oni. I mean, you have to come back. Yeah. Do you want to move into the second aspect, or should I move into the second aspect?
Yeah, you can move in there. I'm just left with the discussion on challenges and compliance with regulations.
Yeah, please get into that. It's fine, Oni. Get into it, then I'll get into my other point.
Okay, so Tebogo, there are a lot of challenges that we have. I mean, Neo has talked about the gaps between the trades and all that, and we have continuous and recurrent problems with compliance, with regulations, and regulatory and risk capital requirements. We have importers or exporters with credit. I mean, how do we rise above these challenges so that we can have the AfCFTA dreams achievable? Because these are perennial problems that we have in half Africa. And I honestly struggle with how the banks get around to be able to get above this, and especially with the smaller guys. They're the ones that, like the caller had mentioned, they're the ones that need the help the most. and he almost not be able to meet up with the requirements of the bank.
Right.
Big challenges all over the place. Like some banks, I think like yours need to be able to craft out a way around it so that we're not just paying lip service to getting the smaller guys out of the woods.
Right. Tebogo?
Thanks, Oni. And I think it continues to be a big challenge simply because we are trying to solve for now, but these requirements really require a lot of scrutiny to be able to speak to the needs that we see Africa needing now. But I must welcome, the development of the IFTCF to be able to get to a point where we are opening up the borders. We recognize that we need to accelerate intertrade amongst African countries. And also to then note that it's very important that we recognize that it's now no longer the regulation from a Pan-Africa perspective, but it's now sitting in the countries to be able to soften and understand that we need to provide benefit. Some of this really is going to speak to the transformation of the countries based on how quick we want to accelerate the growth. And it's very similar to a discussion that we had earlier on data that it still comes back to us, that it's us really who need to do it, and we can only do it for ourselves. And it becomes difficult when we don't prioritize it as countries. Nonetheless, what needs to happen is, are we milking the opportunity out of what is no longer an issue from a compliance and a regulatory and a legislature perspective? And I don't think so. I think there are still opportunities, but we equally still don't milk those because we don't consistently know where these opportunities are. We see them, but we don't consistently quantify them. So when we use aspects and data points of understanding that if I'm in Botswana, for example, do I understand how much is produced from a maize perspective in Zimbabwe to be able to see how I can do if I'm developing machinery or equipment to be able to support that market? And how do I consistently know that if I do it now, in 6 months, there will still be a market? Those are the sort of marketplace data points that we need. And when we don't have them, we continue to sit with the problem. And the opportunities that can arise from that is what will inform the transformation that needs to take place on compliance, regulation, and legislature. So effectively, we sit with the problem because we don't unpack the problem consistently to be able to say, at least from a SADC region, these are the 4 priorities or commodities that if we solve for, we should be able to see dial movers. And I think it still remains an internal conversation. So I hope it answers your question. It probably does not show the green light, but what I'm focused on is, are we doing everything that we can do where we don't have those challenges? And the answer is no. So then even if we did more, we probably need to recognize that we will learn if we start from what is not posing challenges for us now.
Right, you're on Conversation with Africa Rising, AfCFTA. I know that traffic is building up in Botswana and we quite have a number of people who are tuned in. Welcome to the show. It is a Pan-African discussion proudly brought to you by Absa Bank Botswana. And the discussion is, or the subject matter rather, is the role of the banking sector towards strengthening the intra-Africa trade. So trade, as you may agree with me, is a key driver of economic growth and poverty reduction, and drives the exchange of goods and services, capital movement, and fosters cultural links between people and between countries. And it is a catalyst for regional economic integration, economic growth, and poverty reduction. So we are dismantling and unpacking the role of banking sector towards strengthening intra-Africa trade. So if you just joined us, welcome. I'm Neo Tlhaselo and I'm with my co-host Abiodun Oni from Nigeria, co-hosting with me in Nigeria, and our special bank who's actually our sponsor and our guest and expert of today is Tebogo Gidi, the head of transactional banking within the corporate and investment banking division. And Tebogo, we actually did not give you an opportunity to actually just share with us what your office is all about.
Oh, okay. So is it now or later on, just before we depart?
Yes, we are actually, our studio time is 12:54. We're left with about 3 minutes. Yes, because Gaps FM will be going to the top of the hour with that news bulletin, so I'd like you to do that now.
Okay, thanks. So maybe just 1 minute on the role of the banking sector in strengthening Africa. The first thing for me is all the role players coming together, and I really like these forums, and they consistently keep on happening. And I like what you said, Oni, on we should come back and see what ABSA has done for the lady who makes clay and makes pottery out of clay. So I think when we recognize who the key role players are, and if we start from end to end and ensure that we complete the process, the reality of what we will get to is we need to be able to demonstrate it beyond just a conversation of now, to demonstrate that this can actually work, because Africa, unfortunately, is fragmented with many different challenges in many different countries. It almost then clogs up on the view of the opportunities that exist. But nonetheless, the opportunities are massive.
Yeah.
In order for us to be able to strengthen Africa, we, the people, need to first be resilient in the businesses that we want to support, in the commodities that we want to demonstrate can work in Africa, and how we want to support these entities beyond just giving them debt. And now it's me speaking from a banking perspective, where we need to be able to say we want to see these African companies growing into big global corporates, as we have in Nigeria. I keep on saying in Botswana, we can only count a few, but they're not generally indigenous Botswana. We need to be able to get to the point where it starts and it becomes big, and it's because we supported it.
Right,
the manner in which we start supporting entities is at a point of debt, but not necessarily trying to find equity partners for them, and not just one or two transactions, but being very deliberate about saying, out of your total requirement, your debt from a banking perspective probably needs to be X, and your equity partner needs to not only provide financial support, but also need to be able to provide X, Y, Z. And we still run the Citizen Economic Empowerment Forum to make sure that we now don't have these companies purely owned by investors and never having a point in time where they're pure local entities. That's what we need to do, in my view.
Right. Tebogo, before you actually get into, summing up with what your office does, because we are left with a minute, I want you to perhaps just speak to what Oni also highlighted in our commentary, the impact of COVID-19, in mitigating, to mitigate the potential impact of COVID-19 on African trade, and, keep market access channels open. Uninterrupted supply of trade finance by banks has been highlighted by the African Development Bank to be quite vital. What would you like to say on that one in a minute?
Thanks. Now, regarding COVID and the impact of COVID, I think if we have never thought we need to be diverse from a business perspective, it's taught us to be diverse and to be agile in our thinking.
Yeah.
And most importantly, to think with a heart, because we have seen what it has done to people, the very people who run businesses, the very people who employ people. What it's done has been very damaging and very painful.
Yeah.
So it really is to say, from a business perspective, how do we make sure that we diversify income streams, diversify skill sets that we have, and also equally are agile in how we make and deliberate on decisions to make sure that the business can stay afloat somewhat. But most importantly, with the employees we have who actually deliver the results of these entities, how do we make sure that we think about them with a heart and not so much driving income and financial performance as we also have. That's in the short time.
We are actually running out of time. Just give us an appreciation of what your office does in 30 seconds, Tebogo.
Thanks. Thank you. Now, I actually support or lead a team that provides cash management and trade finance solutions, and in their premise has now transformed to a digital agenda, and we support not only corporate and investment banking clients, but business banking as well.
Right.
I hope that sums it up.
Thank you so much. You did it beautifully. Oni, can you say goodbye to our development partners who are listening to us? We've got exactly 10 seconds.
Oh, it's been another interesting show and an exciting time with you, Neo, and Tebogo.
Yeah.
I just want to say that maybe we can ask AfCFTA Bank extend the timing of It's always been
we have so many shows that will come up with AbSA. Yes.
This is Abiodun Oni signing off.
Yeah, thank you so much. My name is Neo Tlhaselo from Botswana. Abiodun Oni co-hosting from Nigeria. In Nigeria, we had the Bohogidi from AbSA Bank Botswana. That is our partner on Conversation with Africa, Africa Rising, AfCFTA, broadcasting live from Gaborone on Gaps FM studios in Botswana. It's a good afternoon.
At AbSA, we believe in helping you find a way to get things done. We call this Africanacity. Conversation with Africa was proudly powered by AbSA.